ready.
Awesome. So this is a pretty cool situation because this is Adam and our third recorded conversation. I was blessed with the opportunity. Adam invited me onto his radio show at WRUU, and we were able, and me and Ciris Rivas Verdejo and Adam were all able to sit down for an hour and have a chat. And so most of you guys,
enough, right?
No. And so I'm super excited for a follow-up on that. I think it's going to be really fun. And we actually I had him on my show for a recording prior to this, but technical difficulties aside, we're shooting for another round. Round.
I'm so excited to be here, Matt. Thank you so much for having me on.
I appreciate it. Burn Your Boats is always looking for people that are just like you, and so that I can kind of get people read on. I feel very familiar with you now at this point, but
I do too. And you know what? Your Burn the Boats show is really catching fire.
I dig it. I hope so, man.
I saw you post about it, and there's little emojis or whatever. I was like, oh man, I've got to do the little fire
yes.
on the boat. I was like, Burn the Boats.
Oh, you did it. It was perfect. I was dying. It was great. Big smiles all the way around.
I'm so happy for you too, because I remember when I first met you, we were talking, and you were still trying to set up the logistics for the podcast, and
yep.
You've taken this vision of yours and turned it into a reality. And I've been listening. I haven't been able to listen to all the episodes,
sure.
But I've been listening, and I really enjoy your platform, and I enjoy the fact that you try to not only create something interesting for people to listen to, but you try to share those skill sets. You try to pick somebody's brain and say, hey, you're a successful person, or you're doing this, or you're on the path. What are some of the things that you've learned? I love that. I really love that about your show.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think that is it's important about the podcast medium is that first and foremost, there's got to be entertainment value, right? Like otherwise, you're not going to have the endurance to stick through episodes and to come back for more. And I really think that the people that I've invited on, I've just been blessed and super lucky with those people in my life. And because the way the conversations go, it feels light and fun, but at the same time, there's depth to it. It's not surface level stuff.
Yeah, edutainment.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's exactly
and entertainment put together. There's a reason why people watch, National Geographic and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one of the cool things about that is I was just watching one with the kids where they were following the sloth along his journey on the island, but they created this narrative behind it that was compelling. And I connected with this sloth, and I was like, what is he gonna do? Is he gonna make it? Is he gonna find his mate?
You start rooting. You're like, yeah, get that leap.
Exactly. Get it as slow as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So like I said, I feel very familiar with you now, and I know your kind of background and what you're doing. But since this will be the first time that my listeners will hear kind of your side of the story, can you kind of sum up or give a 50,000 foot view of Adam Messer?
I was born. I grew up. Now I'm here. That is one of those questions. I'll give you the skinny on it, then I'll tell you what I think. My wife and I have 3 children. So I'm a father, husband. As far as what I like doing and being creative, I write. I do freelance work, paid work. I've done photography. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to do acting. So I like creative things. It boils down to storytelling. It really boils down to storytelling, having relationships with people, like, having a conversation like we're doing now, engaging with those people. And for me, storytelling is a great medium, because you can tell a story through visual art, like a painting or a picture. You could write a poem. You could write a short story. You could record a podcast. This is all storytelling. That's what we do. Oral tradition. we tell stories. And I'm one of those weird, funny people. I don't like the labels because I feel like I used to love the Renaissance period as a kid growing up. And I would see these artists and these engineers and these creators and these warriors and these, these lovers and these poets. They were all the same person, and I thought, wow, I would like to be a Renaissance person, not that I'm an expert in everything, but what I try to do is I try to pursue interests that I have. And that, if that is a short path, then it's a short path. If it's something that's a long-term thing, then I learn new things about it as much as I can.
That's awesome. One of the things that I think is super important and that I have so much respect for you and what you do is the first thing that you said was you talked about your family and your wife and your kids.
Oh, yeah.
And people managing those things, like there's a feeling of restriction, perhaps, of time and energy, and how you can fit all of these different things into your life, because like you said, you have all of these different endeavors that you're pursuing while you're married and you're providing
and a full-time job.
Exactly. So I guess talk to me a little bit about how you strike that balance. How do you
time management?
Yeah, how do you fulfill the emotional needs of your kids and your wife and your own personal needs? Like, what does that balance look like?
Excuse me. Well, I'm gonna start off with I fail every day, and I mess up every day. I make mistakes every day.
Yeah.
But I like to F up. I like to fail up.
Yes.
So I try to learn from those mistakes. I try to not repeat them intentionally. I mean, sometimes you might make a mistake 2 or 3 times before you learn, oh, wait a minute, I shouldn't do that.
You got to get that like really thorough follow through of the hand smacking you on the back of the head. Like, oh, okay. That's
sometimes you need the head slap. Yeah. Sometimes, like you say, sometimes you need that.
Well, I think
aren't you Italian or Sicilian?
Yeah. Italian.
That's that love. That's that love, It's like you don't get the and my wife, she's from Mexico City, so they call it la chancla.
Well, I think it's an important thing because in the aspect of the person on the other end of it, the person who's being failed, whether you're being failed by somebody, by a friend or a loved one, or you're failing somebody, that relationship and that the communication factor there, because if you're not communicating clearly that your needs aren't being met or that something is failing in a way that gives that kind of loving smack on the back of the head, then you're not going to affect change. You're not going to affect the situation. If you're like, okay, that's fine, I can deal with it this once. There's nothing stopping it from happening again if you're not openly communicating that.
There's not a consequence or something. Yeah.
Right.
And that's interesting that you bring that up because the other day I was having a conversation with a person I work with, and they were frustrated with someone else that is a direct report to them or they supervise them. And the other person they just don't care. They have an attitude of nonchalant. They just don't care. And the person I was talking with, they were frustrated because, sometimes they come across kind of harsh, like, that, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't do that. Like, I wouldn't literally slap somebody,
Oh, yeah, no, for sure.
But, it's that image, but sometimes, this person can be kind of rough around the edges. And, but I've watched this person and I've watched them correct the other person and try to help correct that behavior. And, at some point, people, they don't value or appreciate. Now, I'm not saying everybody, right? But at some point, people don't value or appreciate when you're getting that feedback or that constructive feedback. Even sometimes if it's not constructive criticism and it's just criticism, there's something to it. There's some kind of, there's a reason why this person felt compelled to yell and do something or to, scold you about something.
Yeah. And I think one of the important things that needs to be identified and highlighted whenever we talk about communicating with other people is, and any problem that you're engaging with and discussing, is nuance, right? Like there's nuance in everything, and no one wants to dive into it because then it turns the conversation like there has to be instant, not necessarily compromise, but understanding and shifting. Because if I get constructive criticism from you about say my podcast, I'm going to receive that differently than if a person that I work with in the Army gives me constructive criticism on the podcast, because you're in the podcast field, right? And you and my relationship is different. It's unique.
There's a relevant experience that you could share.
Right,
And
exactly.
speaking of the Army, you're talking about communication styles. There are different needs for different styles of communication.
Yes.
There's not time in the Army, and I'm not a veteran, so I'm just speaking from my observations.
Sure.
But there's not time to be able to say, let's think about this.
Mhm.
There's times where it has to be a direct order, and the other person has to comply with that order without question.
And so
there's a need for that certain type.
Absolutely. And with that, and with any business, there can be.
I'm going to drink a little of my Coke.
Absolutely, I got my coffee. We're good.
Okay, good.
Hi,
cheers. Cheers.
But there's sometimes there is time to communicate the why. That seems to be the biggest factor in providing the correct motivation for somebody.
Understand that nuance of saying, okay, well, is this the time to ask about that why?
Exactly.
Or is this the time just to act?
Exactly. And I think part of how you build that up, how you get to the point when you can give orders, say in the military or wherever, and people will take action on it, is developing the relationship of trust.
Yes.
If you are out there and you're actually you show that you're like, so for me, I can delegate a bunch of work to my subordinates and I can have them do that and I can trust them, and I need to be able to do that and I need to be able to trust them. But when I have the time and the ability to be out there with them working, and like there can be something as trivial as taking a bunch of things out of a storage container, taking everything out, getting rid of stuff we don't need anymore, and then reorganizing the stuff we're putting back in. And that could be the task for the morning, Yeah. And if I'm out there with them sweating in the 98-degree Georgia humid summer, then that provides a different narrative of myself with them in the workplace.
Leading from the front. From the front is great. And I still use this. This is one of my new things, Matt, that you blessed me with, actively prioritizing and deprioritizing things. And, I do my top 3, for the day. I think, like, okay, what are my top 3 priorities today?
Yeah.
And kind of going back to the time management thing, I'll give you an example of, you were asking me how do I balance those things?
Yes.
How do I juggle those things? So, and Sirius brought up this question about, like, what, and I apologize, my thing's going off here.
You're good.
Messenger, this is one of the ways that I manage things. It's like I get messages all day.
Yeah.
But Sirius brought this up. She was talking about wearing different hats and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I look at it like this. Okay, so for example, using the Army as an example, when you say Army, you think of one unit, you think of one thing. The Army is a million trillion different things. Mm-hmm. And being in the Army, like you were saying, sometimes you might have to reorganize the Connex.
Yep.
Other times you might be in the office waiting for supplies to arrive or materials or an email, and that's your job. You're actually, the waiting part is your job. So juggling. So yesterday I did this acting gig. First time ever doing acting. It was pretty cool, a lot of fun. It was my Friday off, so number one, it was taking away from my family time. Yeah. So I arranged to do the stuff that I could do in the morning with my family before my job that I had to do. So I took my son to his new job. I made sure everything was settled with him getting back home, and because I wasn't going to be able to pick him up. Made sure the things that I could have that I could manage, I managed. Right. And I went to the location for the job, and I got there probably about 10. Yeah, it was about 10 in the morning. Call time was like 11:15, but I wanted to get there early, make sure the paperwork was done, things like that. And then I didn't leave until 10:30, and I was downtown. So that's a full day. In between, I talked to my wife for probably a minute, and I texted her a couple times throughout the day. Just keep a communication up. Everything was fine. But that's something that took away from my family time with them. It's something that added value for me because I'd never done an acting job before. I've worked on set as a cameraman, doing set photography. I've worked as a grip, which for people that don't know what a grip is the person that carries the heavy things.
That's a cool name. There's some behind the scenes info for people.
and juggling those things. So this morning, leading in today, I didn't go to sleep probably until 12:30 last night.
Yep.
I knew that I was going to be doing this interview with you. Matter of fact, I had to ask you if we could rearrange the interview today because the opportunity that came up yesterday. And that opportunity only came up the day before.
Right.
Thursday, it was actually solidified Thursday for Friday. Excuse me. And we communicated, and I told you what was going on, and pardon me, this Coca-Cola is going right through me. But we talked about that, and so we came up with a new game plan. And here we are doing this.
Yep.
This morning, my son, I dropped him off at work. My wife is taking care of some other stuff with my other daughter. We've already planned out for a little thing tomorrow with my daughter and her friend. They want to go do some stuff. So we figure out, like, okay, what do we want to do? What can we commit to? What can we follow through with?
Yeah.
Not using those terms. I don't talk to my wife like, okay, so I've been looking at the metrics lately, and I noticed that we're behind schedule on the scope. So, how can we get back on track so that we can hit the targets for these goals? We don't talk like that.
No.
Who talks like that in real life?
No.
At work, you might use. I like to call it corporate ease. I'm sure the Army's got its own.
We got our whole litany of jargon that we have. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, being on set yesterday, I was listening to the pros. Professionals or whatever, they have their own set of lingo. And, it's like you just say, like, for example, I just learned this yesterday. When they say go back to one, what would you think that means?
Going back to the first part of that scene, going back.
Very close. You're very close. So you're back to one is like when you start a scene, there's a place where you start at, and you're standing physically. That's your one. So when you have to do another cut,
it makes sense, and like that's the thing is jargon makes sense once it's
when you know it.
Yeah.
If you're on the outside, it's like back to one. What do you mean? So that's the kind of
here at 1 o'clock.
Keep that communication open. Yeah. Keep that communication open, and then managing, or it's so weird. I catch myself doing corporate ease a lot. Just figuring out when conflict happens, how to work through it. And the other day I thought of something. I was like, some next level stuff is when you can communicate through a conflict rather than being snarky or sarcastic or belligerent. When you can communicate in and during a conflict and be able to come out with some kind of positive resolution, even if that positive resolution means that okay, actively deprioritizing something. That's not really a positive or a negative. It could have a negative impact, but if you like you explained, if you're actively deprioritizing it, doesn't mean I forgot about it. Doesn't mean that I'm ignoring it. It means that I know it's there, but I'm putting it below something else because I have something else that I need to prioritize.
There's a cut line for the day when it comes to different categories of action. And so I'm like you have a full-time job, I have a full-time job, I'm in the Army. And so when I'm at work, just like you said, I go in and I have my whiteboard, and on my whiteboard, I have a list of 17 things that need to be done. And I draw a line, and I'm like, okay, everything above this line will be done today. And that's acknowledging all of the chaos that's going to come in. So the way that we talk about planning and doing things with the military jargon, at least in the Army, is we talk about target distances, because when you're at the range, the closest target to you is 50 meters. And so 50-meter target is your immediate short-term goals. That's like today goals, right?
Nice.
Yeah, the 50-meter target for this is this. So you hear that a lot in the military. So for me, in my current position, because I'm one of 5 people, but I'm the only one there. My shop is supposed to have 5 people, but it's just me. And so the way that I express it is that I live in the world of the knife fight. I can't even see my 50-meter targets because everything is just constantly coming up around me. So that's why that cut line becomes really important, because as I'm managing that, those really are the 50-meter targets. And then the knife fight is everything that's constant, like all the fires that get lit that day that need to be managed and put out. And so if I don't do that, because there was a time when I didn't understand management and priorities, and when I was still figuring out how to prioritize all of these different things that are coming from different people, it was like, how do I decide what's what? And so some of that comes, a lot of that, if not all of that knowledge that I have now of how to prioritize, came from failing. It came from, I have to make a choice. I'm going to do this because this just came up. I'm like, nope, that actually could have been pushed to the side. And then essentially when I actively deprioritized these things, then that created these second and third order effects that fell out from there that were really, really bad. And now, okay, I see that my understanding is there. Let's address next time that a situation like that comes up. I understand more. And so, and it's one of the things that I firmly believe is that you learn so much more through failure than you do through success. Success is great. It feels amazing. But who makes it to their successful state without falling on their face a couple of times, you know? And
I mean, you see success. You don't see the 1,000 steps of failure to get there.
Yep.
The 10,000 steps.
Exactly.
And I that's why I said I like to F up. I like to fail up. You know, I like to figure out and fail up. And you know, I love that Bruce Lee's phrase that, you know, I never pray for an easy life. I pray for the strength to endure a hard one.
Oh, God, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it just, you know, I've had a lot of difficulties in my life, but I look at it like this. I've always adopted, you know, never give up, never quit. You know, that doesn't mean that I don't stop doing things. You know, there's a lot of things I shouldn't do. I mean, like I put on some weight this year. You know, I was like 200 pounds last year, and I put on probably a good 25, 30 pounds. My weight's been going from 225 to 230. I had a conversation yesterday with a lady. You know, there's a difference between knowing and acting. So you can know, like, oh, everybody knows how to lose weight. Everybody knows how to do certain things, but doing it is the difference. You know,
it really is.
Actually doing it, being a doer, is the big difference. And, you know, that's a choice. Like this, I know this is going to sound crazy, but this is a, you know, Coke Zero. It's got a lot of chemicals in it, but it doesn't have the sugar in it. I'm a diabetic. I'm type 2 diabetic. So I know if I drank a regular Coke, it would have sugar and I'd have, you know, negative effects. I know I should be drinking water instead of soda. But I wanted that caffeine. I wanted the flavor, you know, that comfort, you know, drinking Coke. You know, we kind of get in these habits, and you have to step, like you were talking about, introspection and retrospection, and just, you know, evaluating those, you know, steps. That is also part of the formula or whatever, because if you don't look, you know, as human beings, we have the ability to figure out, okay, well, did this work or did this not work? I can model what you're doing and replicate those outcomes, you know, vice versa. You know, that's the whole thing. The shortcutting, you know, Tony Robbins talked about crushing decades into days.
Yeah.
You know, being able to shortcut without taking shortcuts. You know, I think that's a big thing too, because if you don't learn from your mistakes, what are you doing? Are you just, you know, what are you doing? You're just repeating yesterday? Are we living yesterday again?
I think it's a great point. And part of that, what I'm picking up from what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that not only do we need to learn from our mistakes, but we can learn from our own and other people's successes. And I kind of translate also that into not necessarily just focusing on our weaknesses and how to overcome those, to take that next step, to get that next promotion, to start that next business, to begin the next endeavor, but to highlight your strengths, right? And so I think that was one of the beautiful things that I've read in the little bit of Tony Robbins that I've experienced myself, is that when he talks about crushing years into days, or, decades into years, is that if you actively prioritize that anything that you want to do, and you look at what your average successful person in that field is doing, and you do that times 10, then you're going to
I
get
believe in
those
the 10x too.
results.
Yeah, I believe in the 10x rule too.
I love it. I think it's
And I'm
genius.
sorry, I
It's
didn't
so
mean to cut you off.
simple. No, please bring it.
Well, everything you're saying, I think, is on the money. I really do. I think it's really strange because my background before, and I've just been focusing on the art stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but my background is in business and leadership. Started my first management job was when I was 18. Before that, I was not a manager, but I always wanted to get into management. I couldn't go to college right off the bat. Actually, I did go to college. I failed out my first year. I flunked out of my first year. And first, when that was over, and I was like, you know what, on academic probation, and the dean overturned like a whole semester for me just because of the personal situation I was going through. I still had to deal with that. Still had to deal with, okay, well, this is, my whole elementary grade, youth years, up to adulthood is,
Mm-hmm.
This plan is out the door. And I thought about going to the military, and nothing was ever right with me with it about it. And as an adult, though, I had to learn how to deal with other people, manage other people, be able to get projects, complete projects on time, hit deadlines, make sure that those results are I really think that you should produce results that are above your targets.
Right.
And when you can, at all possible, go above and beyond when you can, right? And I think with talking about the 10x rule, if you think that you need $100 to start a business, you really need 1,000. If you think it's going to take 10 hours in a day, well, there's not 100 hours in the day, but it's going to be more than 10 hours. For our brains kind of underestimate things. Our brains automatically want to kind of give us the easy way out. Like if you say, oh, I can't do this, your brain's going to say, oh, yeah, you're right. We're not going to be able to do that. So let's just do something else. But when you make that commitment, you have that grit and that determination, say, you know what, I failed, but I'm going to learn from it. Who else is doing what I want to do? Who else has done what I want to do? And sometimes you might be doing something completely new. But unlikely that you're creating a new industry. It's unlikely that you're creating something just completely new, that it's something that human beings have never heard of or experpierced.
And even if
just
you
very
are
unlikely.
Yeah, there are aspects of it that are still relatable to what other people have done, where you can kind of piecemeal success together. I mean, it's like you said, it's unlikely that you're Elon Musk that's coming out with Neuralink right now. You know what I mean? And if you are,
and even that's been in science fiction for the last 60 or 70.
Truly.
Truly. Even that idea is not new. Yep. It's just applying the science to it, right? Mm-hmm. So, but that's a new field of study, but it's been in theory, or it's been in fiction for a long time. So I guess my point is that those building blocks, those common building blocks, we all have certain things that we have to do. Doesn't matter what your job is or what, and when I say job, you can apply the term work to anything that you want to apply it to. Art, podcasting, your job, your 9-to-5 gig, caretaking, whatever you want to apply it to. The work that you do, the things that you do to accomplish those goals. That's work. You have to put in the work. You have to put in the time.
Well, and it's there's this weird compartmentalization and categorization that we do in our head that we shift. And it's important to an extent, because you need to operate a certain way when you're at work and operate differently when you're at home. And there are actually many instances and cases that are easily demonstratable, even just through movies that we've seen throughout the years, if not people's own personal lives, of when that line gets blurred, and And I even know for me, like when I go out and do a field exercise and I'm living Army day and night for
Mm-hmm.
weeks to months on end, and then I come home to the family, then I remember when I was married, my now ex-wife, she would say, she would basically just tell everyone to like lay off me for like the next 24 hours. She was like, you get a day. You get a day to get Matt back
Yeah.
and not
The
Sergeant
decompress.
LaStalia, you know? And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's important. It's important. All of those are important. It goes back to what you were talking about with communication and being able to understand where somebody is at and being able to meet them there. And so that kind of, I remember in our first conversation that we had discussed a interaction that you had with a coworker, and it kind of relates back to an earlier part of this conversation, which is kind of how you deal with conflict or how you deal with problems and obstacles that come up, even if it's within personal relationships in the workplace that aren't about a work task, but how those can cascade and then affect the work. How do you manage that type of situation when there is just the personalities are clashing and there's not going to be a come together moment? Like what's
Yeah.
your mental approach? What is your actual tangible approach?
So let me just make sure I'm understanding. You want me to talk with you about how I deal with conflict resolution when there's not going to be an amicable turnout, or
Right.
there's not going to be, so uh, I deal with it a couple different ways. It just depends on the level of severity of that relationship, because it's like a divorce. I mean, I'm happily married. I've met a lot of people and had family members that get divorced, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've seen people that, that they get divorced and that they're not on speaking terms, and
Mhm.
they do, petty things and, whatever. But to me, it's like a mental divorce. And what I do is, if first of all, being professional is a behavior. It's a learned behavior. Anyone can learn how to be professional.
Yep.
Um, so maintaining that objectivity, being able to remove yourself from the situation, to understand and not take things personally, is difficult. It takes a lot of practice. But what I do, and I think you're talking about when I was talking about the energy vampire thing, right? Is that what you're kind of
Yeah.
referring to? Um, what I do with that situation where I know that things are just messed up and they're it's not going to go back to any type of whatever. I do what I can to make it a working relationship. I don't have to like the person to be able to work with them. Now, if I do like them and we gel and we synergize and everything's just on point and we're hitting on all cylinders, you're going to get better production and productivity and effectiveness. But when you can't, then what you have to do is you have to maintain a professional relationship. You have to be able to still think about the end goal and not think about yourself as much as you need to think about, okay, well, what's for example, when I worked at the university, what's in the best interest of my students, and I might have to work with someone I don't like at all in order to help that student.
Yeah.
It might take a team effort. And I always brought that in the forefront of my mind. What's in the best interest of the student? And you can apply that question to anything. What's in the best interest of my clients? What's in the best interest of my guest? I've had guests on my radio show that I really didn't care for.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I don't like them. I
Mhm.
just, but I did the best of my ability to have the radio show and the podcast or whatever, and I wanted to genuinely help them to be able to put their word out or put their message out. So it's a mental trick. Sometimes you have to just pretend like this is your best friend.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to say, hey, it's kind of a weird trick that works for me. But when I first meet somebody, I don't know why it works, but I just think to myself, well, how would I? Like if I first met you and I'd never met you and I was kind of nervous about meeting you, and I'd heard, like, I don't know, I heard maybe let's just say Matt was the the drill sergeant that's like, oh, really tough,
Yeah.
tough, nasty character. And I'm like, oh man, kind of intimidating at first. I would just pretend like, okay, well, this is my favorite drill sergeant, or this is my favorite,
Right.
this is my best friend that I've known since grade school or whatever.
Mhm.
And for some reason, it works. It's almost like that trick with talking in front of a group of people, and they say, "Oh, imagine people naked,"
Mhm.
or imagine something like something funny. It kind of relaxes you.
Yeah.
Just a mental trick. People that are energy vampires, I disengage. And I don't. There's not enough time of the day to share it with people that are like that. It's just not. There's 168 hours in a week. My time, your time, our time is precious and valuable. It's the only commodity that we truly cannot recover. You can do things with your time. You can repeat something and redo it. That's a new set of time. And that
Yep.
to me is, if I find, and I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character and sizing people up. If I find someone is just trying to use me for whatever, I might play along and find out what's up.
Yeah.
I might be like, oh, well, maybe this person knows somebody that I'd like to meet.
Sure.
I'm not going to disengage with them right off the bat, but I'm going to make sure that, I understand what kind of person they are and, what kind of relationship we have. It's like the friend that only calls you up when they need something.
Yeah. No, it's expectation management in everything is super important, and especially in relationships, whether they be business, personal, or intimate. It's if you're able to establish that's why I've gotten to the point in my own life where I can't. It's just difficult to put on a false front. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you get to a point where you're just like, I don't have time. I would rather have someone know exactly what my intentions are, what is it that I'm trying to do, and then we can operate. If we can operate together to make something awesome happen, let's do it. And if we can't, then that's okay. And like you said, there's something to be gained out of any relationship. That is there any interaction with another person? There is potential growth. There's potential creativity and creations that are possible, even if it's not with that person, but with the fact that you had.
You could even learn something like, okay, this is something you might learn something like, well, this is how I don't want to behave.
Yeah, it could be as simple as that. To me, that's like the baseline of a negative interaction. Like, okay, I will never treat another person like that.
And it can help you to grow. I mean, it's helped me a lot because I'll be honest with you. There's sometimes where I'll lose my cool. I might get aggravated or whatever, and I'll lose my cool. And I'm not one of these people that freak out or whatever, but I might lose my cool, and then I think to myself, well, why did I let this person? And it's not even them. It's not even them. Why did I get upset? Why did I allow myself to be aggravated by that situation? And it's a learning tool for me because I use that as like talking about growth hacking or whatever, or talking about learning from failing up. That to me is a big one because there are people that they're bored or whatever reason they just like to push people's buttons.
Yeah.
And
it's called Twitter.
Yeah, it's just weird. But if even if you could take it away from like, okay, well, what can I learn from the situation? How can I add value? And sometimes you can't take that like right on the fly. Sometimes you're not gonna be like,
no. Usually that is after the fact, after you've been fired up. Because you have to acknowledge, if you do not acknowledge that we are emotional beings,
we are,
and we justify things logically.
Yeah,
exactly. Like you just have to acknowledge that first.
In our gut than there are in our brain. I was, matter of fact, I was talking to my son this morning. So this is kind of off in the philosophical realm or whatever.
Let's go there.
Okay. All right. So music. I just want to talk about music. I love music. I don't know anybody that doesn't love music. And I'm not talking about hearing impaired or deaf people.
Of course.
I'm just talking about, in general, music. Can you touch it? Can you feel it?
Emotionally.
Can you feel it?
But like skin? No.
No. Can you touch it? Can you touch music?
No.
But can you feel it?
Yeah.
Can you feel music?
Mm-hmm.
You can't touch it, but you can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
That was the point.
Mm-hmm.
You can't touch music, but you can feel it.
Yeah.
You know, and it reaches us on a different level. So we're different levels of we so a philosoph so this is like what kind of out there. Philosophically though, we're all just a vibration. I
Right.
mean, what is an atom?
Yeah.
What
It's just
are all
different tiny particles vibrating at certain speeds. Yeah.
what are we then? We're a vibration, and that energy exchange that we have, it's a vibration. Music touches us because it evokes those emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It makes us think about, oh well, I could see myself in your shoes. I can relate to that person. That could have happened, that could have been my mom, or that could have been my sister or whatever.
It's a great point. I really think that, like, because we talk about people being empaths and or just generally just being empathetic
Yeah.
or sympathetic, which I
I
think is
think
important.
that's two different things, really. I think being empathetic and being an empath they're similar, but they're not the same. Like
Right. No,
empathetic to me
absolutely.
is like being able to understand somebody's emotions without having to take on that their emotional, not mimicking their emotions.
Right.
Being an empath to me is more on that philosophical realm. It's like not quite being psychic, but having that deeper connection and that vibrant
Like you're
that
actually
frequency.
feeling what that person's feeling because you've taken on that emotional set so deeply and so much into who you
Without
are that like somebody
without verbal
loses their
communication.
father and you're feeling that sadness.
That without that verbal communication. Yeah,
Right. Right.
like I can feel. Now I'm not talking about me, but talking about general. When you feel like that, you can actually feel their emotions. You can feel like there's something wrong with them. Not even they might have a smile on their face.
Mm-hmm.
They might be like everything's great, but you just know that there's
Yeah.
something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You might ask them, hey, everything okay today, Matt?
Yeah.
You're all right? You need anything, man? You want a glass of water or something? It might be
Right.
some sort of that's weird, but like sometimes I might ask them like, hey, you want a Coke? You want a drink or something?
Right.
And that little thing, it just kind of
It's an
opens up that
invitation.
door.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just saying, hey, man, I'm here if you want to listen. You want to talk, I'll listen or whatever.
Well, on a less deep level, on a less connected level, empathy or being empathetic itself, some people just, I don't know, there seems to be a feeling that some people are just empathetic and some people are not, and they could be sympathetic but not necessarily empathetic. I think that it's all a choice. It's a choice of where you're willing to let your mind go, in the sense of
Yeah,
like how deep are you willing to let yourself go into this person's shoes, like, can't.
that's true. That's true. But also, I think as well, and this is everybody has different talents and abilities and gifts,
Mm-hmm.
and so we operate on different levels, right? So some people are gifted with high intelligence. Some people are gifted with mechanical ability.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 7 major intelligences that you can have. Some people are not intelligent at all. They're not gifted and they're not talented, but they can be wonderful people.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're not worthy and they're not valuable. They don't have value. They are valuable. They have value. But that's something else too that we have to think about is like, okay, well, I might be operating, on the 99th floor. They might be on the 50th floor. How can I help them meet somewhere in the middle? And there's a lot of times where I'll have to throttle back maybe a thought or expression or something like
Yeah.
that. And it's not because the other person isn't smart or capable. It's just because we have different vantage points. We have different viewpoints.
Sure.
Emotionally, and emotional intelligence, to me, is it's really it's like what runs us. I know some people try to act like they're logistics, not logistics, but logical. I got my words confused there. See, stuff happens.
Yeah.
But being sympathetic and empathetic, two different things. But some people don't have those skill sets. They haven't built that emotional muscle up. They don't. They can't comprehend or cope with somebody. And I'm not saying that can't say, well, oh, you burnt your hand. Well, I can understand how that feels. I'm not saying that, but I mean, they might not understand that, or maybe they had something that happened to them when they were younger, that they just built up this wall, so that when something traumatic happens, they're just like, they don't care, or they act like they don't care. They do care, but it's not about you, it's about them.
Well, and a lot of it comes back
they do
to,
care. People care.
Yeah, I think a lot of that for people, and when they have that thought, or they're battling that they don't care, or they think that they don't care, or like they don't think that they should, a lot of it comes back, and what we do on a daily basis seems to come back to like our personal narrative. What story are we telling about ourselves, and why
are we letting other people see?
Yeah, and why, if I get to write the story of myself, and I tell it to myself every day, why am I telling myself that I'm terrible at public speaking? Why am I telling myself that I'm scared of heights? Why am I allowing these narrative lines to
conditioning
be a rule? It's a choice. Like
it's conditioning too. I mean, like, well, it's going back to philosophy or whatever. We have a system. The system's designed for people to fit in the system. It's not designed for people who are the oddballs or the weirdos or the outskirts or whatever. Anybody that's outside of that system, right off the bat, because they're doing something different. They're doing something abnormal. It's like, well, why is this guy doing this and doing that or whatever? He's not doing, he's not. You never hear about people that are in the system and they do their daily grind.
No,
they just, they just don't talk. It's like,
the
I get up, go to work.
The irony is that most, if not all of the functions that facilitate that standard, normal, everyday system were created by the outliers. So
it was a way to control masses.
I don't even think necessarily that there was. There were people. Perhaps there were people that took the outliers' creations and turned it that way to continue to control and to implement order and rules that way. But the outliers, like the people who created the computer, the person who developed the internet, like these are all things like these were outliers. Like you don't have a person that worked through the system.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. No, they probably, those folks didn't create that to control the masses. I'm just talking about a system. I'm not talking about technology per se. I'm talking about like a system of order. I mean, we live in we don't live in a hierarchy, but we live in a system of order. Alexander the Great said that he didn't fear an army of lions led by a sheep. He feared an army of sheep led by a lion.
That's
an outlier. You want to talk about an outlier? Alexander the Great. We're still talking about him a couple thousand years later.
Right.
His what he did in his lifetime. We're still thinking about it, and we're still looking back at. I mean, Sun Tzu, The Art of War. How long ago was that? What's come after that replaced it that's better?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of things out there, but I think it goes back to you have to have a common denominator, right? You have to have that common denominator, and being able to communicate with people on whatever level they're able to communicate with, emotionally or otherwise. That's a skill set. That's a memory muscle that you have to develop. That's a device that you have to come up with, a mechanic that you have to work with. You have to find out what works for you. Mm-hmm. You have to go with that. And wherever you find yourself, take yourself with you. Go there, be present.
Absolutely.
Communicate. I'll bring this up, and I think it's kind of interesting that you're talking about this, but I had a conversation yesterday with a person I just met. We had a lot of things in common. We were actually kind of having a philosophical conversation, and one of the things that she brought up was that you kind of touched on this being compartmentalizing our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were married, your wife would say, "Okay, you've got 24 hours to come back as Matt."
Yeah.
You had to have that decompression time.
Mm-hmm.
But that behavior that you had was conditioned. You were taught to be like that.
Yep.
So that 24 hours, your wife is like, okay, I understand that this is your job. This is you at your job. This is not you. This is not my husband and my father and my children. So she knew the difference between that, and she knew that you needed some time to recuperate, from that. This lady and I were talking yesterday, and she was talking about, that we're different with different people. And I like to feel like I'm the same person wherever I go. I don't act different in front of my friends or at work with my children. I try to be pretty steady with it. But I did tell her that, everybody, I feel like everybody is being truthful and they're being themselves, but it's on different layers. Like, you and I are going to have a different level that I would have with my wife, that I would have with my children. Same thing with you. You're going to have a different level with me than you would have with your new girlfriend.
Yep.
We have different levels that we're still the same person, but certain situations call for different behavior, trained, learned, conditioned behavior. You go to work, you have to act a certain way. You go to church, you have to act a certain way. You go, like right now we're talking, we have to act a certain way. Like I can't, like if I wanted to drop the F-bomb right now, it's not going to be appropriate for your show. So I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? And there's certain situations where I might drop the F-bomb and it is, and it fits, I'm not saying that you have to drop the F-bomb or whatever. I'm just saying it's just an example. But we show people what we want to show them. They see what they want to see. But everything is really just a reflection of yourself and someone else.
Yeah.
When I'm talking to you and I'm filtering it through my lens. I'm filtering it through my ears. And what I hear is, I'm filtering all of that back out. And, you might have an influence on that thought or that emotion or whatever. But ultimately, it is me who determines how I react to it or how I take it in or don't take it in. We have control over that, and kind of goes back to the ego and the id and all that stuff. It just when you realize that we're connected, we're all connected in a certain way. We're all different, and we're all reflections of each other. It's kind of sometimes a little overwhelming to think about how big it is, but at the same time, it's also really beautiful. It's also really incredible that you can say, well, I'm learning from this experience with you. I'm talking with you and I'm learning, listening to you, talking with you. I'm even learning from talking about stuff that I'm, coming up with or thinking about while we're talking. We're the whole time, and then some people, that's not how they operate. That's not, their level. They're like, well, why would I want to put mayonnaise and mustard on my bologna sandwich today and no cheese when every day I just put mayonnaise and cheese on my sandwich?
Yeah.
They're a bologna sandwich kind of person every day. They want that same consistency because that consistency, that routine provides them a level of comfort and it provides them a level of stability that they need in their lives. That's no different and no worse or no better than me wanting to have, beef stroganoff for lunch instead of a bologna sandwich.
Right.
It's the same. You get out of it what you want to get out of it.
No, and I think one of an interesting thing, I think we actually talked about this on your show, was the importance of embracing situations that make you uncomfortable and that make you afraid in this life, especially for us in the United States right now, because this is some of the most secure, safe, consistent over a long period of time period that has existed in human history, where you don't have to worry about the next city over coming over in the middle of the night while you're out hunting and them raping and pillaging your village. We're so far beyond that we have this sense of security every day, and so we kind of get lulled into this sense of complacency. But more importantly than that, we get wrapped up in this nice, warm, comfortable blanket of, these are the things that I do every day. I get to talk to these people that I know I get along with at work. I get to perform these same kind of functions at work that I know how to do and I feel comfortable doing. I get to come home. I drive the same route home from work every day in the car that I've had for the past 3 years, to the same people I see
Mhm.
every day, and everything. There's comfort, there's familiarity, there's security, and I'm not taking away the importance of that. I think that a lot there should be a sense of security in your life.
That's
I
why I have
think
a Coca-Cola right now.
yeah. Well, I
I
think
mean,
about it like in like the big
we're
aspect.
creatures of comfort.
We are. And I think that it's
Mhm.
important to have that in your personal relationships. I think developing that with your personal relationships so that you have those rocks to lean on, that is where I would like to see people focus their security energy is in their
Mhm.
relationships. But
Mhm.
in your personal endeavors and what you're trying to do, if you're not embracing change
Mhm.
and the uncomfortable, you're yeah, you'll be secure, but rarely is there growth in security. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about the way that you operate in this world is that you've had so many different endeavors and you currently have them, and you're constantly looking out and how, like, you just did this acting gig yesterday, which was not a thing 3 days ago.
Yeah. Right.
And
Right.
so when new opportunities present themselves to you
Mhm.
and you have, like, how do you overcome, do you deal with a sense of fear, and with opportunities that do come up, how do you manage that? What is your approach to those kind of things? Or do you take like a logical kind of approach, or is it an emotional base? Like, how do you feel about it? I'm curious.
Uh, I can I address that in a couple parts? Uh,
Please, all of them, all
okay.
the parts.
So fear. I want to talk about fear because that is a fear is one of those things that it will either change you or it will torment you, right? Um, you're either going to grow because you have to, or you're going to grow because you stayed in the same position for the last 30 years. You grow, but you just don't see the growth, you know? And I'll give you an example. You find out you have cancer. You're afraid. You change your lifestyle. You change everything you do. You still die, you know? That's not your fault. It's not a blame thing. It's just your fault. Or you have cancer. You don't know when you're going to die or if you're going to die. You might not die. Whatever. And you decide I'm going to live every last moment that I have to the fullest that I can. And I've seen that. I've seen people do that. And you have to make that choice. You have to decide whether or not you want to live your life or if you want to be a player on the stage, if you want to watch it. Do you want to watch your life go by or do you want to live your life? I don't, I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't get afraid. I'm not afraid of things or I don't have fear, but my fear, I've learned to identify it and tackle it right on. If I'm afraid of something, why am I afraid of it? Why is it bothering me? What am I afraid of? Is it financial insecurity or, is it like you were talking about, like village plundering or whatever? Is there a physical fear? Is there a threat of bodily harm or injury? What is the fear? Is there some kind of reality base to it, or is it just worry or anxiety, or is it just did I eat today? Am I thirsty? Do I need to have a drink of water? Because your body does weird things sometimes. Have you ever noticed you might have gone all day and not had anything to eat,
I mean,
and
I do that every
you
day.
just start okay. Well, hydration and proper nutrition have a huge impact on our thinking and our emotions. Like that Snicker bar commercial. Those Snicker bar commercials are so popular because they resonate with people because they know you're getting hangry.
Yeah,
Eat a Snickers.
it's so real.
Um, people know. I mean, it's the truth. But it's like why are you afraid? What's causing that fear? What can you do about it? Do you have control over that situation? If you don't have control of a situation, then you have control over your perceptions of it, your reality of it, how you interact with it or react to it, or whatever. How and kind of, I guess, going back to the main part of the question, what do I do?
Do you have an example of an opportunity that came up where there was emotional friction, I guess you could say, even if it wasn't recent, just things that have come up, and whether it be an opportunity or an obstacle, and then there was fear associated with it, because that's a big part of it. Is I know that we had talked about emotional muscles, and I know that courage is one of them, and the ability to act while afraid is an emotional muscle. And I know that this muscle is strong within you.
Well, and I try to share that. I try to, I try to lend courage to people when I can. There's confidence doesn't come from faking it till you make it. Confidence comes from taking action. And you have, sometimes you need somebody that says, hey, you know what, Matt, I know you can do this. If I can do it, you can do it. And you lend that courage to that person. It could be everyday courage. It could be stuff like, sometimes just getting out of bed, going to take a shower. It could be just everyday courage. Like, okay, well, I really am dreading this new thing that I've got to do at work today. That's a form of fear. Anger is a form of fear. When you get angry, that's a form of fear. People don't think of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is. And really, what is that? Fight or flight? What are you running from? What are you fighting against? You have to figure that out. When you can ask yourself that question, well, why do I feel this way? And you can genuinely answer that question, you can change a lot of things. And talking about dealing with something that, I was afraid of, or, whatever. It's really weird, Matt. I don't want to sound like a psychopath here, but, I learned a long time ago to just to not be afraid in certain situations. So, like, for me, fear comes out in like worry or anxiety or discomfort. Fear doesn't come, like, I'm not one of those people that I'm like intimidated easily, right, or I'm a fearful kind of person like that. But fear comes out with me like, I may be worried about something that I have no control over. So why am I letting it take up mental space?
Yeah.
Why just go ahead.
I was just going to say, I refer to that as allowing something to live rent free in my brain. Because that's what I'm doing. And I do that. And it was a power.
I have those kind of tenants.
Yeah.
They got to get out of here.
You really have to. And
you're not paying rent. You got to get out.
and the thing is, the rent.
Yeah.
If we want to walk this analogy or metaphor down all the way,
let's do it.
The rent can be action that you take, because it just goes back to what you said, and I thought it was beautiful that fear can be I forget what he said. Fear can essentially be crippling, or it can initiate action, is what I took from the energy that I took from what you said. And
fear is either going to crush you, kill you, or make you grow. You know?
And so to me, worrying can be, and stress can be very useful tools if you are self-aware enough to acknowledge the fact that
say
and so you're like, okay, I'm worried about this public presentation that I have to give. And
well, they're red flags in life. And it's like, hey, something's wrong here. What's wrong? What's going on? These are red flags. You don't want to ignore them.
Exactly.
You want to say, oh, wait a minute. Let's address this. Is this something I can actively prioritize or actively deprioritize?
Yeah. And if you have a presentation coming up in a week, and you're going to be up in front of a couple hundred people, and you've never done that before, and you're not familiar with it, what is the worry? What action is that spurring? Is it spurring you not sleeping at night? Is it spurring you going out and finding the people that that have done these things and communicating, like, okay, what do you do? What's your strategy? Are you doubling down on your research?
Matt, oh my gosh, I love that. You know why? I was just thinking about this. Why do people fear things? the unknown. People
Yeah.
fear the unknown.
Yep.
You know, like you said, you've never done this before. You don't know what it's going to be like now you can relate. You've seen other people do it,
Mm-hmm.
but you've never walked that walk. You've never put those shoes on and traveled down that path.
Yep.
So you
And
don't
nothing
know.
can change that. Nothing can change the fact that you haven't done it. But what you can control and what you can change is how much you know. So continuing down the road of public speaking, because it's such a commonplace fear.
Are you going to be doing a public speech soon?
Yeah. So
Are you going to be?
I have an endeavor that actually I need to talk to you about an aspect of it. We'll do it after the show.
Offline, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just about some of your skill sets and how I can pay a local, I can patronize one of your skill sets. So,
Cool. I'm always open for freelance gigs.
absolutely. I'm down to support.
No, I'm just kidding. No, you have to say yes to opportunities.
Yeah.
You know, so like I already know that I want, whatever it is, I want to work with you, and we're going to make it happen.
Absolutely.
So
I can't wait.
Having that fear, like, if I'm like, I don't know, that's another form of fear.
Yeah,
Saying no to things because you don't have the confidence because you're like, you've never done it.
Right. And so the way for me,
yes.
the way that I'm able to build to kind of do the mental exercises that build courage in something that I haven't done before. So like if it was public speaking, I can't do the event 3 times before the event, right? So like I said, like your first time is going to be your first time regardless. Got it. But what you can do for me is the more knowledgeable and the more comfortable I am with the information, then I know that I'm going to be able to communicate and flow with it because my depth and breadth of knowledge of the subject material is there. Right. And I also have the confidence to be able to say, you know what? Like if someone brings up a counterpoint or something during this and they're like, that doesn't make sense. They're like, you know what? That's a fair point. And that's something that I need to consider. I'm aware of this, and this, but I'm going to look into that. And being mentally agile and flexible enough to be able to manage that. Some of that, I mean, you can run into a situation where it's just bad, right? And that may happen. And that goes back to what we're talking about of failing and growing from that. Like, oh, okay, how did that happen? I know this stuff. Why didn't I not see this part of it, or whatever the case may be? But that's, I know for me, if I'm trying to get in front of a group of people and I've never communicated about this topic before, or I'm just learning about it for the first time and I'm expected to go up there and speak about it, then the anxiety and everything goes tenfold.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things there, Matt. Number one, if you're not in your own lane, then you shouldn't pretend like you're an expert.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes, like, somebody that fake it, if till you make it or whatever, don't do that.
Not in that scenario.
Beginner. Yeah. No, I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about general, right?
No, I'm saying like, don't do it.
I'm not talking about you
for anybody.
Yeah. You don't want to, make a buffoon out of yourself. You want to start off and start off in your realm or your lane. If your goal is to speak in front of thousands of people, you don't start in front of thousands of people. You start in front of one person, 2 people, 3 people. You cut your teeth on those type of events. You get your chops by doing that. The other thing too is, like you talked about, skill sets, having confidence in your knowledge, and remembering it's not a debate. It is not going to be a debate. A lot of people confuse like an argument as a debate. An argument, by the real definition of it, is just a presentation of one's side. Okay, so that's what an argument is. People confuse bickering and arguing and debates. I'm not going to debate with someone. It's not a debate. It might be an argument because I'm presenting my side and my position. You might present your position. We might not agree, but we can agree to disagree. So, keeping that in mind. Visualization is a huge tool for being able to mentally walk yourself through it. Practicing that visualization, imagining yourself, looking to the audience, addressing the audience, talking to the audience, scanning the audience and making eye contact with someone. And here's a little trick I'll show you. I don't know if you can see I'm going to try to zoom in. You see the bridge of your nose right here?
Mm-hmm.
Right here? See where my finger is? If you look at the bridge of someone's nose right here, they can't tell if you're looking in their eyes or not.
No. Yep.
This is a tool that you can use. So if you're nervous talking with someone, you can look right here.
Yep.
Just right in the middle of the bridge of their nose. And that's just a tool to think about and a trick. So you can visualize, you can practice it. You know, we used to say, I had a sales job one time. We used to say, practice your pitch so much, practice your canned pitch so much that it tastes fresh. Just open up a can of Campbell soup. I threw it in the pot, and I told you that I just made it with pureed tomatoes. You believe that it's made with pureed tomatoes because it's that good. You know, and I'm not lying to you. I'm just trying to tell you, like, I know myself and what I'm doing and my product or my skill set so deeply and so richly. And like you said, you counterpoint things or whatever. I know that. I might not be confident in the new arena. It might be a different venue, but I know my business. I know my skill sets. I know who I am, and I'm sure of those things.
Yeah.
And those things will lend me confidence to be able to do the other things.
Absolutely.
That's something that's beautiful about that. We can all build from that. It doesn't matter. You can apply that to anything. New relationship, new job, new talent, new ability, new skill, anything you want to do. If you want to be a painter, guess what? You don't have to have thousands of dollars worth of paint, brushes and canvases. Go get a $5 package that comes with a little kit and paint and stuff like that, and just start painting. You have to do those things in order to be able to do them. You have to do them.
It's beautiful because and this, I really feel like you're just a great representation of this, is that when you want to do something new, or if you want to take the next step in whatever it is that you're currently doing and progress, the requisite step is action.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just, and it can be small, but that's how that snowball turns into an avalanche as it rolls downhill. It's momentum. And I noticed that, if I get home after a full day of work and my first step is to sit down, it's not like my momentum is already waning. I'm like, okay, well, I just got done with this work. And so I'm mentally preparing every day on the way home from the Army. Like, okay, here are the steps that I'm going to take. Like if I get this done and I do that, and I can shift to here, and then I can do that. And I have this much time to be able to fit in this editing, and then to book this interview and talk to this person. These are the things I need to do today. I mean, a lot of times the action can be internal and mental. Like I'm actively prioritizing. I'm actively choosing, this is what I'm going to do. And then, and it's different for different people. Some planning, like minimal plan. I don't like to live in the minutia of planning. I'm a big picture kind of guy. Like, okay, in the next 3 to 5 years, I want to see this. And I'm trying to get better at scaling down that goal setting so I can see it and break it down to 90-day stretches and sprints, and be like, okay, these are the things that I want to accomplish. But it all starts with taking that action. Like, okay, I'm going to go out and buy this $15 thing that I'm going to put directly somewhere where I'm going to see it every day. Because I really believe that your environment will help to dictate or promote whatever it is that you're trying to do. If I have my microphone sitting out on my coffee table in between the couch and the TV, every single time I go and sit down and turn on Netflix, the microphone is sitting between me and there. And I'm like, it's this constant mental reminder.
Cue. Yep, it's a visual cue. I have a poem on the wall right by the door when I go out in the morning. It's the Don't Quit poem. Have you ever heard of that? Don't Quit?
I'm not familiar.
I'm gonna send it to you. That poem is one of those best motivational poems that it's just stuck with me, and I don't have it memorized by heart or anything like that. But the gist of it is, sometimes things go the wrong way. They're not what you think, and they're going to, you might feel like all hope is lost, but you never know when you might have won the fought with that last hit or that last blow, or you might the clouds might, when you come over that hill, the clouds might be dark and ominous on this side of the hill. You go over the hill and it's bright and sunny and beautiful, and it just says, rest if you must, but don't quit. So you have to rest. You have to, like you said about shifting that. I was just going to add to that with shifting that energy. Our bodies will give out long after our minds quit. Our bodies can keep going. That's why, the military is so successful, because they can train people to condition their minds to shut down, to be able to physically do things as almost like a robot, almost like, on command,
Some muscle memory.
Same thing
and
with
just
physical
conditioning.
fitness.
Yep.
Soccer, athletics, your mind, you have to, there's a thing called monk mode, right? You heard of that? Monk mode? Going into monk mode?
Educate me.
M-O-N-K, monks, Okay, so monk mode is when you're doing the work and you zone in and focus on the work. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to contemplate. You don't have to, question it. You're just doing the work. You're getting into it. Dishes. I'll give you an example. And I like monk mode. A lot of people talk about it with like creative stuff like writing or, whatever. But doing the dishes, who likes doing dishes? I don't know anybody that likes doing dishes.
It's not a fun thing.
Yeah, it's a task that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And
doesn't require a lot of mental effort.
No mental effort.
Yep.
It requires a lot of physical effort because, repetitive motion and that kind of thing. You get wet and, soapy and dirty and, but there's no mental effort in it at all. There's not, you don't have to think about like, how do I wash this dish? But you gotta get it done. And then what's the reward? You have clean dishes afterwards. Those things, you just get into the task of doing it, and there's no thinking about. People call getting into the zone. You go to the gym, or some people. I don't like to run personally, but some people talk about with that runner. You just kind of zoning out. You're not when you're meditating. You're in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And monk mode can be incredible for doing the work, because you just get in and you start doing the work, and 15 minutes. Let's just say you did 15 minutes a day, half an hour 2 days, hour and 4. You've almost got 2 hours in 7 days of work. 2 hours, and that's chunking it down to 15-minute increments in one day. 2 hours. You can get a lot of stuff done in 2 hours. You can get a ton of stuff done. You can talk about a whole lot of things in 30 seconds on the phone.
Oh my gosh. It goes so quickly.
The thing is, when you get into that zone, you just say, I'm just going to do the work right now. I don't care about what else is going on. This is my 15 minutes to thrive, or whatever. I'm borrowing that from Tony Robbins again.
Right.
But this is my 15 minutes. And I'm going to chunk it down to that time frame, and I'm going to do that. It adds up. You have the time, 8 hours in a month. What's that? 96 hours in a year, something like that. 100 hours. How many projects can you finish in 100 hours? How many things can you do in 100 hours? There's a lot of things that you can do. So
no, you're absolutely right. And when you think about it from the aspect of like, if you're say you're trying to learn a new skill, and you're trying to figure out Photoshop, or learn an instrument, and because then it turns into this, it says, are you still there? Can you hear me? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I had an unstable connection message. Sweet. We're still going.
Oh yeah, probably the Wi-Fi or something.
Yeah. It turns into a compounding interest event, right? And because you're not starting from scratch each day, you're building that first 15 minutes. Think about how much the sponge of your brain is absorbing all of that. Okay. And then the next 15 minutes, you can capitalize on that and continue. And like you said, you build that up over time. And if you just spent 15 minutes a day, like, I'm going to learn a new chord on the guitar, and then you do that every single day, like, that's the impact that you can have on your life. And it goes back, I think that we had talked about this before. We've talked about so much, but we talk about changing the course of your life. If you're wanting to do that, you don't, and equating it to a ship, because apparently somehow the army guy has everything in a show relating back to ships. So you're on a ship, and you want to,
I love the burn your boats. Like, burn the boats. We're going in.
Yeah.
I love it.
Awesome. I heard that story and I was like, oh my God, that's it. I knew that there was going to be, this is it. And this is it moment, because like I had several names for the show lined up and I was like, it works. It works. It works. The energy is not there. And then
it doesn't. It works. It could work.
Right.
It wasn't it, right?
Yeah. No, exactly.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because can I just plug this real quick?
Plug it.
I don't want to sound cheesy, but talking about this about word beat poetry, right?
Yeah.
It's a word beat poetry, and I'm not trying to plug it like that, but it is a plug in a way. But when I was thinking, I was like, okay, I'm doing this poetry thing. What should I call it? I didn't know. I didn't know what to call it. And I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? I like this name, word beat poetry. And you don't necessarily have to name something, but when you do, it's a thing.
It is.
So like your show, Burn Your Boat, it's a thing. It's like, it's real. It's tangible. It's like, you know what? It's not just a podcast. It's the Burn Your Boats podcast with Matt LaStalia. You know what I mean? That's the difference.
There's this weird energy that comes with it, that came with it. It was like, once I named it and once the first episode published and it was a thing, like, it's a real thing that exists in this world based solely on actions that I chose to take. It really does. People say, like, you hear like, oh, it took on a life of its own, and it is its own entity, and its entity is made up of me and the people that I bring on. And not only that, but the reception of all of the conversations, the information, the energy, the drive, the motivation that is being sucked out of it, and to all of the people that listen.
You're growth hacking it. You're growth hacking it.
Yeah.
That's my radio show. That's the same thing I've been doing with interviewing authors, artists, and entertainers. Short, like crushing decades into days. Learning those. It's growth hacking. I mean, that's all I can think of. It's like, you're taking like, okay, what is that? Can I do? How can I learn? How can I apply these skill sets? What actions can I take? All these questions. It all goes back to a question. It's like, hey, what can I do different? How can I learn? How can I change this up? And these. It's so strange, but when we were doing the original podcast or whatever, it was at the coffee shop, and the sound whatever was just too loud. But that led to another interview for you, right? Mm-hmm. Then you say that the folks were sitting across from us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that led to a different interview, and so those opportunities, you never know, how, like you said, it can impact someone else. It could, share with them. I think it's great. I love it, man. I think you're doing a great job.
I appreciate it. No, and it's
this Zoom thing. I was curious talking about it, and here we are doing Zoom today because this is the best. This is the best medium for us to be able to do this podcast.
Yeah.
So that's a connection. Well, I've never used Zoom before. Sirius introduced me to it. I think it's cool because you're like we were talking earlier about Adobe Spark, talking about graphic design or whatever.
Yeah.
When you see someone doing something, it's our natural instinct to want to help them, And I know you were talking before, you were asking me, like, not today, but I know we were talking before about, you were asking about how can I connect a person, whatever. And I see people with different skill sets, and I introduce them to other people that I think that they would have a mutual beneficial relationship that they both can grow from or be able to get, a positive experience out of, and I love making those connections with people. I love being able to help someone else. I have an author friend of mine that I recently introduced her to a friend of mine who's on a local news station here. And I said, well, my friend's got a new book coming out. My other friend, she does interviews with, people in the community. Let's put them together.
Heck yeah.
She was on there. The author friend of mine was on my news friend's show yesterday. You know what I mean? And it's just like those kind of connections make me happy too, because I'm like, you know what? This is a blessing. This is, being able to help someone else out on their journey and their path. It enriches my life, it enriches their lives, and the reward is so beautiful. I just love being able to do that. Being able to, and I like to be able to connect with people like you too, because you do the same kind of thing. I like to be able to connect with other folks because it's not a transaction, it's a relationship. It's not like, well, what can you get out of this? What can I get out of this? It's okay, well, this is something that we're spending time on. This is something that we're doing, we're talking, and we're going back and forth with it, and this, you never know what this might lead to. This interview with you, your interview with me, all these different things. Like I met Sirius through you. Yep. She's a super awesome person. You know what I mean? We both know Corey Brooks.
Yep.
And I think when people are genuine, they're sincere, they're authentic, they're going to have other people's best interests at heart too. They're going to try to look out for, the other person and try to take care of them when they can. And, don't sacrifice that to the point where, you're sacrificing yourself or your family or your kids. That's not right. But when you can do something, you can extend something to someone, and even if you spend some money on it, or even if you give them something that you might have invested time or money into, and you give it to them freely, without an expectation of reward or anything like that, that gift is so enriching. I mean, it's just so empowering too, to be able to just give somebody something and not have an expectation of something in return. It's so freeing. It's like,
yeah,
you know what? I just wanted you to have this, Matt, because I really think that you would appreciate it and you deserve it.
Yeah. there's the expectation can just be different, and you shift the focus from maybe necessarily a monetary expectation of transaction to, I know that I see what you're doing and I see what you're trying to create, and what if I give you this, I know that it's going to help create this thing that I support and that I'm trying to do. And I totally get it. And at the same time, supporting each other in a way, and once you get into a business ownership entrepreneur state, a lot of times the shift can be different, because friends will see what you're doing and they'll ask, like, oh, hey, can I jump on this train? Or can you cut the friend deal or whatever? I'm like,
oh yeah, that's a whole
yeah. But
worms. Yeah. We could talk a lot about that. Do you want to talk about that?
Wait, just
I can
do it. Just
a lot about
we
stuff
can
like
go
that.
into it. Because like what I've seen is that people will ask for that discount, right? And
they want to jump on your tailcoats. Yeah.
The perspective, right? There's two different lines of thought there, and there's the people that want to utilize your services and they don't want to pay you the price for it because they know you, and I see that as an ignorant display of disrespect, and I don't mean that like as a double.
No, you're right.
I think that they're not thinking it through all the way. They're like, oh, it's my homie, and like we've always helped each other out, and he can hook it up with this really awesome thing he's doing because we're good. And it's like, well, you're not thinking about me, and you're not caring for the energy and the level of work I've had to put in to get it here. And now you're wanting to undervalue what it is that I'm doing, when I would hope that as a real good friend, you would take that half second and think, okay, how can I support you? How can I can I tip you extra on the side? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that like me personally, because I'm not in an industry that really works that way because,
Right.
but if I were providing a material good or a service to people in that way, then I mean, I get it. And I try to think about that when I see new people, like even when they go MLM style and they're like, oh, I just started this thing and I've got this product. And I'm like, and I will never ask for a free sample, but I've had them give it to me multiple times. And then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll check it out, but I would never
Yeah.
ask that of somebody out of respect for what it
Yeah.
is that they're doing and
Yeah.
knowing that they're having to put their money and their time down. And then there's the other side, like you said,
Mhm.
people have already asked me to host my show for me when I can't do it. And I was like,
Wow. Knowing that you record your own show ahead of time.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so that's the coattail side of it. But I'm curious to hear what your take on it, because I know that I'm sure you have plenty of experience.
Okay, so yeah. Let's let me see real quick. I just made a little. Is that okay still?
Yeah, you're
Can you
good.
still see me all right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sorry, I just shifted around a little bit in the chair. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about the nitty gritty, ugly side of freelance gig society. What you're experiencing, because I'm just coming from my understanding of your adult life work experience. You're in the Army, and everybody there has a certain expectation. They have a job. They have certain pay grades and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the retail world. It's not capitalism. It's government. You're a government employee. You work for the United States of America.
Yep.
Okay. So you have a contract. You're basically owned by the government until your contract's over.
Correct.
Okay. So that is a whole different world than like what I've ever lived. Okay. I've never had that life. But living in a capitalistic free society, we're taught to consume from birth. And we're taught, like, I'm repping my own shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, baby.
Like this is a marketing and advertising thing. It's it's crazy because we're taught to consume, right? So when you have like you have your radio show now, all right? So this is podcasting, I guess, is really starting to pick up a lot. I've noticed a bunch of my friends starting to do podcasting, I guess because it's like if you buy a red car, like a red Miata. I think there's a little red Miata parked in front of me. You're going to notice a red Miata everywhere you go.
Yep.
Right? So I started noticing a bunch of different podcasts and stuff like that. And you have the people that want to ride your coattails because it's a weird kind of way to support you, but it's not really supporting you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to say, hey, I see. It's almost like this. You get a birthday cake, and they're like, oh, I want a piece of cake, right? They just assume because you have this large cake that you're going to share it with people, and that they, for some reason or another, being associated with you or knowing you or whatever, that they deserve a piece of the cake without any work, without any effort, without any purchases or anything like that. So I get that because going back to consumerism, we're conditioned to have free samples, free, buy this, get one bargains. Everybody likes to feel clever. Everybody likes to feel like they got a deal. Everybody. I don't know anybody that doesn't like to feel like they got a good deal. I don't know anybody that would rather pay more for the same product. They're going to want to pay less. That's why Amazon is so popular. That's why Walmart is so popular. That's why people shop there. Maybe they don't like Amazon or maybe they don't like Walmart, but they're going to shop there because they might save $12 on a book. I might wait a day or two if I can save $12 on a book versus buying it in the store for $30. Do I really want to breed it that bad right now?
Mm-hmm.
Nah, I could wait. So we're conditioned to consume. I mean, even drinking a soda. I keep going back to the soda thing, but even drinking a soda, we're conditioned. I like that comfort or whatever. So freelance stuff, I have done. Pardon me, I just have to keep shifting around here. But I've done freelance photography, and then when I say freelance, I mean paid work. I don't mean free work. freelance just means, like, it was an old term, like, a mercenary knight would be able to be called a freelancer because they would sell their lance for hire,
Yep.
So paid work. That doesn't mean that I haven't done free work, but I would focus that on volunteer work. I didn't give my free work to, whatever. Now that doesn't mean I didn't collaborate either. I collaborate with people. I'll do work with someone. I will collaborate with them, but I'm not going to do it for free. I'm not going to charge them. I mean, I'm not going to say, oh yeah, Matt, it's going to be $50. I will collaborate with you because that's a collaboration. We're working on it as a joint effort, even if that means that you need a service from me and there's not an exchange of money. I'm still collaborating with you on that project.
Right.
That's, to me, it's a difference, because doing stuff for free, you get what you pay for, and if you're known for doing things for free, then people will ask you for free stuff.
Yeah.
When I would do photography, yeah, it is. And if you don't value yourself, your time, your skills, your treasure, you don't value that, or you don't know the value of that, people are going to take advantage of that.
They will.
So those, and not everybody, but those kind of people that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's also another muscle that you have to build up. You have to learn how to say no. Either you disengage with that person, and I'm not talking about ghosting them. I don't think that that's appropriate, because you want to be professional. You can say, I had a lady this morning ask me on the way to do this interview. I stopped over to get my son a breakfast sandwich. This lady asked me if I could give her a ride down the street. And I said, I'm sorry, ma'am. I have to, go see my son. I'm not able to give you a ride. She said, but it's just right there. Like, she had some expectation that I should automatically give her a ride to the store or something like that. I don't know her, never met her before, nothing. I have no point of reference with her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sacrifice what I had already intended to do with, for my son, just for her. I'm not going to do that. But that was her approach. That was her sales pitch, right? The commission for her was to get the ride to where she wanted it. Yeah. So everything we do, there's a commission involved with it. There's an exchange, there's a reward, there's whatever with it. With the freelance stuff, and when you start, getting into the retail side of selling things, anything you sell, it's retail. It could be commercial, industrial, could be private, whatever. I just call it retail because you're selling something, right? Sales. You're selling the idea of this podcast, right? So you're selling people on the idea of, my podcast is different because X, Y, Z reason. My podcast is different because I am this person. My podcast is different because, and you hone that, you craft that, you put that time in, you are doing the work. You have invested the money in the expensive microphones and equipment, the software, the computer, not even that. That's all peripheral stuff that you have. That's just the cost of entry to get in. Mm-hmm. Your time. Mm-hmm. How much time? I mean, how many hours, Matt, have you put in the last couple of months on this?
Oh my
Probably
God.
close to a couple hundred hours.
At least.
And does it feel like work?
So there are parts of it. I mean, even the parts that are less fun is all amazing. Even when I'm like banging my head against the wall, like, because I know the end that I'm meeting and I'm so invigorated and impassioned about it, and it lights me up so much. Even the worst parts of it, I still, there's this gratitude and this love for it. And so
let me rephrase the question.
It doesn't feel like army work.
Let me rephrase the question. Do you regret your decision?
Not for a single second.
Right.
And I cannot picture my life moving forward without it.
That's what I'm getting at with the freelance stuff, because the people that do this, the people that make the things, we're creators. You're a creator. I'm a creator. It doesn't matter what you create or you make, you do it, and then there are people that aren't, but that doesn't mean they don't like it, Yeah. And, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, the manager of the place, I kept getting refills of my Diet Coke. I don't know why I've been on Diet Coke lately, Kick, but
I think I found the name for this episode. What's your Diet Coke?
Diet Coke. Yeah. What flavor is your Diet Coke, right?
Yeah.
But I tipped her for her time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she didn't charge me for the drinks because I was part of the crew, you know, the acting and stuff. She didn't charge me for that, but I tipped her for her time as a way to acknowledge and thank her for her service.
Yeah, absolutely.
She didn't have to do it. She didn't have to give it to me for free. You know, and I'm not going to ask somebody to do something for free. I might ask somebody, hey, you know, Matt, you know, I know that you're really good at this, or you know, how much would you charge for something like that?
Right.
You know, you might say, well, I wouldn't charge anything, you know, or you might say, well, I could do it for, you know, $50. Or you might say, you know what, I'm going out of town. I'm not going to actually be able to do it on the
Right.
date.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not going to be offended or upset, you know, angry about you saying no, because I respect our relationship. The people that don't respect your relationship are the ones that get upset or angry when you tell them no, or you tell them, you know, well, I've got $50 in materials right here. How do you expect me to give it to you for nothing?
Mm-hmm.
Am I just supposed to buy your dinner every night? Is that the way that works?
Yeah.
You know, am I supposed to pay your electric bill every day? You know, every month? You know, and that's just something to think about. Is like, I know a lot of creative people, a lot of artists that give their stuff away for free. They put their money and their time into creating that thing, and then they say, well, you know, I only spent $2 on yarn, and I've had these crocheting needles forever and a day, but I made this awesome hat. I'm gonna sell it for $5. What? You spent 3 or 4 hours knitting this hat, and you're gonna give it away for
And how
$5?
long did it take you to curate those skills in order to be able to crochet a hat in that amount of time?
Exactly. You know,
Investment
exactly.
period. It's like someone going to college, getting the experience out of 4, 8, 12 years of education, and then going out and then having none of that time valued as their experience. Which, I mean, because there are so many people doing that now, that's a whole.
That's actually very true in society. That you hit it on the button. That actually is what's happening. That's exactly what's happened in the last 20 years or so with college grads.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm not going to say that I'm a product of that, but I mean, I finished my education, and you know, it really goes back to skill sets. What can you do? How? You know, people will pay you for what your value is, but it's like this. You know, going back to, you know, wanting a deal. Everybody wants a deal. If you say you want $75,000 and they're willing to pay you $75,000, that's because they think they're going to get $150,000 worth of work out of you.
Yeah.
They always think that they're going to get a better value. Or if they come back and they counter and they say, well, you know, Matt, I understand that you were making 75 grand at your last job, but I can pay you 50 and you'd be doing more work and you'd be working more hours. But I can only pay you 50, even though you got to do more work and you got to do more hours. They don't value you as much as you think you're worth. Yeah. You have to understand and judge that. You know, so with the freelance gig stuff, if somebody comes back and wants to haggle with you about your prices, oh, well, anybody could do that. I could draw that. Anybody could take a photo. Anybody can press the button.
Then
anybody can
go ahead.
Exactly. And I'll tell, you know, I've told people before, hey, you know, then I appreciate your time.
This isn't going to work.
Right for you.
This business relationship isn't going to work for you, and that's okay. And I think that the way that you talk about being able to say no and the importance of saying no, I think that's incredibly important, because that is valuing yourself. It's valuing your skill set.
That is a skill that you have to develop. You have to be able to say no, because again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, juggling time. You know, if I'm doing a job for you and it's taking away time from my family and my children, or even myself, my personal time, isn't that worth something? Shouldn't I be compensated for that exchange? And even if it's a collaboration, what's the compensation there? You know, we're collaborating. I'm not getting paid to be on your podcast. You didn't get paid to be on my my radio show. Nope. There's no monetary compensation there, but there's compensation in the reward of, we're friends now.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We're new friends. We've helped each other out in a couple different instances already. And it wasn't like an expectation of a return, but there's this intrinsic value and this compensation, a commission, if you would, just for that exchange. And that can be really good. Sometimes it can be ugly, like you were talking about earlier. Like the people are like, okay, I don't know who would ask you if they could be a podcast. You pre-record your podcast, right?
Yeah.
So whoever asks you if they could be a guest host, I get why they're doing it. I get why they're doing it. I don't think that they thought it through.
No.
So I don't think that they might have thought it through, but I get why they want to. Like they're like, oh, hey man, I'd like to be a guest host, or I'd like to fill in for you if you're not here or whatever. I get that. That's a compliment.
Yeah.
I get that, and that's a compliment. But sometimes, like we were talking about earlier, about people on different operating levels,
Mm-hmm.
they don't really understand sometimes. Like, you always see, like the Wizard of Oz, you always see what's in front of the curtains.
Yeah.
You don't get to see the guy behind it.
Yeah.
You don't get to see the little troll running around my mind at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, you got to get this done. You got to get this done. You got to get this done. I'm like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I got to get up and work at 5. Come on.
Well, and it's,
see that stuff.
So for this, it's become it's an extension of who I am. And there are the things that I have learned, that the skill sets that I've developed and cultivated over the years, whether they be resilience or interpersonal and everything, and that I use those to try and guide the conversations and extract the information that I want, that I think is going to be valuable and entertaining to the listener. And so it would take getting to know someone well and knowing how they would compliment, because no one's going to do the show the way that I do it. And that expectation of that has to be known from the get-go. So if that case were to come up, it would have to be someone that I know is already familiar with how to host a show, and especially if it's going to be an interview-based show, then that's a whole nother thing, because you have to be able to communicate. And some people, like you and I, we can go back and forth like this for the rest of the day, but some people are not that way. And you have to be ready for that. You have to know who you're talking with, and be ready to extract, like more manually extract those things. And
yeah. Well, open-ended questions help.
Yeah.
And prepping the guests before they come on, because I know we talked about doing interviews and like how I like to stylize my interview. And I base my interviews with people off of the format that I found that works for me when I'm doing an interview for my newspaper stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like to do an informal chat with them, and then I'll send them the questions via email. And I'll let them know when we're doing an informal chat, this is not the interview. I just wanted to talk with you, get a better feel for it, get to know you a little bit better and what you're working on, whatever you're doing. And I like to have that point of contact first, because first of all, it lets their guard down, because people are nervous about interviews anyway. They're nervous about being put out in the light. And even if it's just a small podcast like what I've got going on, I don't know how many listeners there are, but even something that small, they might be nervous because it's out in the public. It's like out there, you never know where it's going to go.
Public consumption, anybody can listen to it.
Yeah. And so, I try to put their mind at ease, and then I'll email them the questions, and I'll form those questions. I've got baseline questions that I use over and over again, but I'll form the questions around and not critique, but curtail it, I guess that's the right word, to what is specific for them, what is going on with them.
Sure.
Right? And so each guest that, I talk with on the radio show, you have to do the same thing, even though it's the same kind of format, same kind of formula, same kind of thing. You're doing the same things over and over again. You're doing it. It should be new. It should be different. It should be exciting. It should, but you're going to get people that are dry sometimes. You're going to get people that give you the one word or 2-word answer, or, they might have whatever is going on in their mind.
Yeah.
And they might not even be in the interview right then. They might be somewhere else, mentally.
Absolutely.
I like what you said about trying to extract that, because sometimes it does feel like you're extracting an answer.
It can.
I had recently, I had an interview where I didn't realize it, but the person sent me back information that they had sent out on their press release as, like an answer to one of my questions. And my editor said, don't quote a press release. I was like, I didn't quote the press release. I quoted what they sent me, I didn't have a chance to see the press release beforehand, and I didn't ask for a press release. That's my fault. I'm responsible for that.
Right.
Same thing with your guests, like talking to people. It's your responsibility to do your homework, to do the work, and find out, at least a little bit about that person.
Yeah.
And like my radio show, I do an informal, conversation style interview, and I like to talk to the guests about them. I don't like I'll share things that I have a perspective with, and I'll share common ground or whatever. But it's about them. It's all about them. Going back to that one question, what's the best interest of my client or my student or my guest? What's in their best interest? Not mine. What's in their best interest?
Mm-hmm.
And when I do that, it takes me out of that equation. I'm not thinking about what my needs are. I'm thinking about that person's needs. So like for me right now, I'm thinking about what's in the best interest for you. I'm focusing on you, and this is like what I'm doing right now. This is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
I'm ignoring the other things, ignoring the outside stimulus. I've had 4 or 5 messages. You've heard them dinging.
Oh yeah, me too. I get it. And that's something that I know because of our conversations before, and because I've gotten to know you. Like I know that I have that expectation, right? We talked about expectation management. I have the expectation that you're going to be present. I don't have that with every guest,
No,
so
you're not gonna have
for me, it creates a sense of security there. That's like, okay, like things are going to come up, but we're going to work through it, and we're going to make it happen. So you actually answered, I want to get to kind of some of the last questions here, and you answered half, because so usually what I ask is kind of like for you to give advice on something to the people that are up and coming or struggling in the field that you're in, but you operate simultaneously in a bunch of different fields. So I was going to break it up into 2 different things. Is what advice would you give to somebody that's struggling when it comes to freelance work, or not struggling, but what advice would you give to somebody that's in freelance work? But I really feel like you just gave that in the sense that it's, what can I do to benefit you? How does it affect the consumer?
Can I just add this to that?
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. Get your money. Get your money.
Value yourself. Right.
Get your money. I mean, get your money. Know your worth. Get your money. You're a freelance person. You put the time and effort in it. Get your money. Don't feel ashamed or embarrassed to say your price, to let people know, hey, this is going to, you need 4 hours of photography. Hey, that's going to be $800. Sorry, not sorry. It's $800.
Yep.
That is
what I'm worth. That is what I'm worth.
20 hours
of value that I'm going to provide you. That is when I package this up and give you your book of photos at the end of it, and with all of the different options you're going to get during, it is worth probably in excess of that. So here's my deal for you. Yeah. No, that's great. I love it. So the other half of it, was there anything else that you wanted to add specifically for that side? Okay. So
you gotta over deliver, over promise, over deliver, and get your money. You can't just be a lazy halfway person and try to expect people to pay you premium prices.
Yeah.
If you're the $5 guy, you're the $5 guy. If you're the $100 guy, you're the $100 guy.
You want premium payment, be the premium deliverer. Yeah.
You better be bringing it to the table, and you better have your A game on. Exactly. But get your money.
I love it. So the other half of that question goes more into the creative side of the house. So if you have somebody, a fresh author, somebody that's coming out and they're starting to write poetry, or they're starting to create art in whatever form it is, and I mean it's a tough gig in this world, because it's not, when we think about consumerism, it's not a baseline need in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like until you get to the top. right? And so your base, I'm not worried about art to hang on the wall or poetry to contemplate until I have those baseline things done. So the struggle for artists can be real because you're going to reduce, or your target audience is reduced, right? It's not everybody, which I mean is the case for every field. But so what is for somebody that's coming out into that field and they're trying to make their way, what do you have any words of wisdom through the years of experience that you've had in the more creative sector?
Yeah. First of all, make good art. Whatever you do, do it the best way you can do it. It kind of goes back to the freelance thing. You better bring your A game. That doesn't mean that your A game is going to be the same as someone else's A game. You're going to start off and you're going to take steps, but take those steps, take the action, put your stuff out there. I see a lot of people that they're afraid, like, if you don't mind if I just talk about, like, right before the interview, I was like, hey, are you going to put this on YouTube? And you're like, I was like, man, put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Get it out there, put it on there, because people like seeing this kind of stuff. And it's always that, and I do it, you do it, we all do it. There's always this, it's not where I want it to be. That just means you have taste. That means like, I want to be this level A game, but right now my A game's here.
Yeah.
But I know I'm going to be able to get there eventually, So put your work out there, polish it up, move on, do the next thing, build off of that first thing, go forward, keep moving forward. Take the time off when you need the time off. When you have your bad days, you know what? It's okay to have a bad day here and there, but don't beat yourself up, and then don't have a pity party for 3 weeks. Get up the next day and say, you know what? That was yesterday. Sometimes you got to leave yesterday Adam behind. That dude's gone. You got to move forward. So, make good art, do what you can, put your stuff out there. Don't be afraid to put, somebody like you said earlier, that's so true, because I've done a lot of different side gigs. I've had about 3 careers. I'm going on my 3rd career now, but I worked as an optician, as a lab optical manager for like 10 years. I worked as a financial aid director in a university setting for about 10 years, and this last 2.5 years I've been doing industrial electrical work. So I've always had a job, like making money and doing things like that. The creative stuff, you gotta put the time in, you gotta put the effort in, you gotta put it out there. This poetry book, literally this came about because I met a guy named Brendan Walsh that came to Savannah. I interviewed him doing a freelance gig, a paid gig for the Savannah Morning News to Savannah. But I met him at his Great American Poetry Crawl. So I got paid to do the interview with him. But when I met him at the poetry crawl, I'd never been to a poetry reading before. Here I am. I haven't written poetry since high school. I've written like 45 poems in the last week.
That's amazing.
And I have other deadlines. Like I have a July 31st deadline for a horror anthology book that I'm going to be in. I have to have that back. Follow through with your deadlines. Do those things. Be available. Be present. Be mindful. Say yes to opportunities. Say no to the wrong things. If it's not good for you, say no. But I think creatively, you got to put it out there. Don't compare yourself to other people. There's only one Matt LaStalia. There's only one Burn Your Boats podcast. There's only one of you. Even if there's another one that says Burn Your Ships.
Yeah.
It might be almost the same exact title.
Yeah.
And then there might be a guy, his name might be Mike LaStalia.
Yeah, right.
Might be somebody that's like, right? He's not you. There's a guy up in Atlanta. There's a guy up in Atlanta that his name is Adam Messer. My sister sent me a message the other day and asked me, she's dealing with this company or whatever, and the guy's name was Adam Messer. She's like, is this you? I said, no, it's not me. She said, you think it's somebody using your name? I said, no, there's a guy up in Atlanta that his name is Adam Messer. His name is Adam D. Messer. My name is Adam D. Messer. He uses my email by accident from time to time because his email is Adam D Messer. Mine is Adam Messer at Gmail, right? So I get his email sometimes. His middle name is Douglas. My middle name is Daniel. Never met the guy before.
That's insane.
I was on an email chain from his family. Like I was like, you got the Adam, you know? So it's not your name.
That's not a problem I can relate with.
You know?
Not a problem I can relate with.
Well, yeah, I know.
Not with this last name.
Not Lastalia. I mean, I don't know how many people. In my original was from Cincinnati, and there were only like 12 Messers in the phone book when I was a kid. We had phone books back then, right?
Yeah, right.
There were like 12 Messers in the phone book, and I remember my mom and dad paying that $25 a year to be unpublished. I remember you had to pay to actually have your name, your phone number as a private phone number.
Yeah.
But you just gotta, if you don't have any, I'll lend you some of my courage. Do it. Yeah. Go out there and just do it.
I love it.
Don't overthink it. Do it.
Well, if people want to check out your poetry and check out your show, like go ahead and plug all of your stuff now. I want people to be able to see, because what you're doing, I can't even say what you're doing. All of the things that you're doing are amazing. They're incredible. And so I want people to experience and to feel what you're bringing and to be a part of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, I don't want to sound confusing or anything like that. My creative side of stuff. Okay. So I do a radio show where I interview authors, artists, and entertainers. I freelance write as a writer for the Savannah Morning News, Do Savannah. I write fiction, and I started writing poetry. Yesterday, I did an acting gig. Again, it kind of goes all back to the, art of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to say I'm a storyteller or anything like that, but I like to share with other people. I like to create things and share their story. I like to, like I had you on the show, and the series was on the show with us, and then you're going to be on, and she's going to be on separately. And, so I like to be able to interview interesting people that I, feel interesting creators. And, so it is a little confusing, I guess, because I don't want to say, oh, Arthur, artist, entertainer, blah, 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 blah. It's kind of weird like that.
Yeah.
But I like to focus on the art of storytelling, I guess.
Yeah.
Interviewing people, learning their stories, telling stories, sharing stories, that kind of thing.
Well, if people want to listen to the interviews, what's their best route to get there?
Yeah. The one that if you want to check out like all the stuffs on the internet's for me.
All of the stuff.
I have my adammesser.net. That's my main website, but on there you can check out my stuff. But if you want to check out social media stuff, you can go to my Linktree page. It's linktr.ee Linktree /Adam Messer. And I'm on Instagram as Adam Messer. Facebook is author Adam Messer or whatever. But like I said, I just like to interview people. I like to talk to them. The leadership stuff and the other stuff that comes from my work background and just personal overcome things throughout my personal life, and these are all things that I've learned that work for me. Can I share this last story with you?
Please, yeah.
And then I know you got to wrap up.
Of course, no, bring it.
So I am guilty of self-deprecating humor and apparently self-limiting talk. Yeah. I didn't realize this. I was talking to this lady yesterday, and she said, we were talking, and she said, I noticed that you say self-limiting things. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, well, you say, so, well, I'm not this or I'm not that. Those are self-limiting descriptions. And I thought about it. I was like, she's right. And I do self-deprecating humor. I'd rather make fun of myself than somebody else, and I'd rather laugh at myself than somebody else.
Yeah.
But she said, you shouldn't do that. She's like, you shouldn't do that at all. And I was like, well, I don't do it. Like, I really don't, like if I say, oh gosh, I'm so stupid, I don't really think I'm stupid. I just think I might've done something stupid.
Right.
Or,
yeah.
I might've done something bonehead move, I mean, whatever. But she said you shouldn't do that because even if you don't believe it, there's something that's resonating with you subconsciously and in a deeper level of consciousness, and you should affirm what you are and who you are and your beliefs in a positive way. And I was like, there's something of merit here because she's like the
Yeah.
third person recently that said something to me like that. And to me, I'm just joking around, and I'm just I think I'm being funny,
Yeah.
but some other people might think like, oh, why are if you're doing all these things, why would you say that about yourself?
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm just joking around. I'm not like. So that's something that I'm working on personally. Like
Sure.
I said, I F up every day. I fail up every
As
day.
long as we fail
So
up.
that's something that I'm working on. Yeah, you F up, you fail up. That's something I'm working on, and it's strange in a way. I guess because sometimes people have, like you said earlier, that slap on the head, like somebody's got to, hey, wake you up. You're like, oh. Sometimes you need that little jostle, that little shake to get you out of your comfort zone or whatever. So that's something I'm working on. But yeah, the whole point of doing the creative stuff and putting it out there to the world, honestly, I don't really make any money off of book sales or anything like that. I'm not doing it for the money for that. Now I'm an animal when it comes to my freelance work. I mean, I'm gonna make money off my freelance work and stuff like that. But when it comes to the art stuff, for example, I just put the book. I just use it as a reference, right?
Sure.
There I go with the self-limiting behavior again.
Yeah. Own
right.
it, baby. I mean, plug that
just
stuff.
Caught myself. You have to be aware. You have to be able to catch yourself doing it and say, wait a minute. So I'm working on this word beat poetry book. We got a word beat poetry hour. This is a new goal of mine that I'm working on. I put up a pre-order for it yesterday. I'm like, oh man, this is so great. Put it out there. I got like 4 people that liked it or something like that. I'm very grateful for them.
Sure.
I'm very grateful for the people that they supported, stuff like that. But talking earlier about when people ask you for stuff for free, when your friends are doing something and they're putting something out there, and I don't ever think I would never want somebody to buy my book. If you don't like poetry, don't buy my book.
Right.
But if you like poetry and you put a couple samples on there and you like my poetry,
buy the book, man. Buy the book.
I mean, sponsor on somebody's podcast or something like that. Do something.
Yeah.
Show some support, because I guarantee you, we don't think twice about going to a store and paying $5 for a cup of coffee.
Nope.
Because we're paying $2 for a soda. We don't think twice about it. But to ask somebody for $5 for a book of poetry that I've spent hours on, or to ask somebody to buy anything that you've made that's not commercialized, it's an individual product. It's almost like this disconnect in society. It's almost like there's a disconnect in society. I think it goes back to that consumerism.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's this weird commitment or fear of commitment people have with making that decision and taking that step to buy something that's not in a store like that. And I don't know. I'm really curious to see what that is.
People think that social media and liking something on social media, or just clicking on it or liking it or whatever, that is one form of support. But that's like the lowest level entry. Showing up, like if somebody invites you out and and you say you're going to be there and then not showing up, because that happens a lot. People will flake out. That is not showing support. Telling somebody that you're going to be there and then you don't show up, that really can, hurt somebody's ego. I mean, it can deflate what they're trying to do, because they're like, well, I was talking to Adam and he just seemed like he was so interested. He said he was going to be there. I texted him and said, hey man, are you still coming? He never responded. How many times does that happen? People will make a fake commitment and then they don't show up.
Yeah.
So that to me is the same thing. Like, oh man, I can't wait till your next book comes out. I'm going to buy a copy. Then they don't. Oh, I've been busy. Really? We have our phones and our
too busy to buy a book.
reach.
Have you not made any single purchases in this time?
Well, and it's not to beg the sale. It's not to beg the sale. It's just like, if you tell me that you like this stuff and and this is your thing and you enjoy this kind of stuff. I mean, I have a lot of indie friends and I buy their books. I try to follow their releases. I'm not going to buy it out of pity. I'm not going to buy it because
I don't want that purchase.
Do that. Nobody wants pity. No, but I don't want you to buy my stuff if you feel like that. Don't buy it. But if you want to be a supportive, listen to that person's podcast. Give them comments. Give them feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, man, I was talking to you, and that guy, Adam, he's just, whatever. He's just this, that, or the other. That kind of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
You want that interaction. But it kind of goes back to that surface level. To me, social media is just like, you can use it as a great tool, just like the internet, like you're learning 3 chords or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You can use the internet to use the internet and social media and texting as a way to interact without interacting.
Mm-hmm.
They're not present. They're giving you like a superficial. It's a good way. Superficial is a good way to put it. They're very superficial about it. The people that are genuine and that they're your true supporters, your real supporters, are the people that reply back to you, that they talk to you, that they call you up and they ask you how you're doing, not because they want something. They want to see you be successful because they know how much time and effort you've been putting into it.
Mm-hmm.
They know that you've been putting hundreds of hours into your podcast. That's the kind of thing that if you want to show genuine support. People, I see people post all the time, like how you can support an artist, like their stuff, comment, blah, blah. Honestly, that's great. That's really great. But it's not, it's like, it's not everything that you could do.
It's entry level, and it's like you said. I think that you put it very well, that there's gratitude and there's appreciation for the people that are doing that. The next step up is sharing. Like, please, like, this might not be for you. Like, poetry might not be your jam, but how many people do you know and are you connected with that it is, and that you don't even know? And that is a beautiful part about social media, is that if I see a post about something that isn't my jam, I'm like, that might be kind of cool. I can share that at least. And so that way it just spreads the awareness. It creates more opportunities. And then those people who are into it, like, oh, I know Matt, and I can trust Matt. And if he's sharing this poetry book from Adam, maybe I'll click on the link and just see, like, what is this about? Oh, that's kind of, and then
being genuinely connected and interacting and being authentic about it. That is really supporting a creative person.
Yep.
Having that authenticity. I'm not saying you go out there and just say, oh, yeah, I'm going to buy this just because I know you. Don't do that. Nobody wants that.
Yep.
Don't listen to my podcast or my radio show just because you feel sorry for me or
it's not necessary.
I would rather have one solid person than 100 likes on Facebook any day. Any day of the week. I'll take that any day. But if you want to be authentic, you want to be genuine, you really want to see that person do well, like you said, share it with somebody that might be interested in it. Say, hey man, have you heard this Burn Your Boats? Have you heard this podcast?
Mm-hmm.
This is an entrepreneur that I know. Hey Matt, this is somebody that I know that might be a good fit for your show.
Exactly.
You do those kind of things because you do it for everybody else. You do it for yourself. There's a new like the new movies that come out. Oh man, I can't wait to go see that. They build that interest. They build that superficial need. That whatever. They build the hype up, and people are just in a frenzy to see it. Oh, can you believe they're doing this? And people love that drama. But when it comes to supporting like our friends and our family that are doing things, I don't know. And then when they make it big, it's like, oh man, I was there from day one. I was there, like, I was listening to Matt's podcast before he even had a name on it. You know, you're like, what? You never
Really?
one time told me that you were listening to it. like where is this coming
That
from?
is honestly the interesting part is I've had hands-on experience with that, where I've had people come up to me
Already?
and
Wow.
give me full-on critiques of episodes, like, but people that are thoroughly into the podcasting world, where like they listen to interview-based podcasts just like mine is,
Yeah.
and they're like, hey, listen, so I listened to your first 2 episodes, and both of those were CD's 2-parter, and he's like, I thought you did an amazing job with this, and this was really awesome. It was captivating here. Like, did you ever think about something like that? And I'm like, dude, I don't even know you, like, on, like, we're not even friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
And you found the show? Like, I know you, but like, okay. That's cool, and the level of interest there was kind of mind blowing.
It's kind of strange too. Like it's kind of like what? How? I didn't know you were Googling me.
Yeah, no, it's and how the word gets out there, and it's that kind of thing is kind of what keeps my my fire lit for the show. I mean, it's lit because I enjoy these conversations so much myself. That
me too.
As long as I continue to enjoy it and I continue to feel like I'm getting value and I'm able to create value from that is displayed outward, I'm going to continue doing it.
Yeah,
And
I think that's that's the reward of it. And when you can support someone and you genuinely like it, like I'll listen to your podcast. I started listening to it. I've got a friend named Josh that he does his podcast in Savannah. It's called the Savannah Zombie Podcast. He's the one that turned me on to the Anchor FM, know, and I listen to when my friends put something out new and they're trying to do something different. Like I have a friend of mine that she's got a Patreon account and she just started doing it a couple months ago. And she asked me, hey, I just updated some of my stuff. Can you take a look at it? And give me some feedback. That's a way that you can support someone because you're helping them in some capacity or whatever. And that's the kind of thing. If you want to support a creative person, then do that. Don't think that liking a post is supporting. It's great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But that's not the kind of support that creative people need.
Mm-hmm.
Social media, sharing is like a next step up. But, talk word of mouth.
That's the most
really,
powerful.
To me,
that's
word of
the
mouth
most powerful thing.
Yes. Word of mouth is the best way that you can support somebody. Hey, you know what? I'm not really into entrepreneur stuff, but I've got a friend of mine that's getting ready to start a business up. You know what? I'm going to tell him about that or her about it because maybe they can get some information out of your show that can help them on their route, on their path. The poetry thing. There are 3 poets coming out to my show for the first poetry reading. So it's a way that I can do something that I enjoy, and it's also a way to help promote what they're doing. So it's a show. It's going to be. I didn't realize so many people like poetry because I like poetry, but I never talked to anybody about it.
Right.
I haven't written any poetry since I was a kid. I go to this poetry room at East Shaver Booksellers and a packed room. I didn't realize that there were so many people that enjoyed poetry.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, I'm going to share my thing. I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to share my thing. And I have other deadlines. I have other goals.
Sure.
You talking about the acting thing earlier. And I know we got to wrap it up here, but talking about the acting thing, I'm just kind of gelling it all together.
Yeah.
That opportunity came about on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday this week it came up. I emailed the director. This is from a friend of mine that posted on Facebook about, them needing extras. And I told my friend, I said, well, I'm off on Friday, I sent him a message. He sent me the information. I emailed the director. I've never done any acting before. I don't have an acting resume. But I just sent the information. I sent a headshot. Just said, hey, I'm open Friday or whatever. He emailed me back. We talked on the phone. And he asked me, are you available all day? I was like, yeah, I'm available all day. He said, well, can I get back with you because we're looking at some other people, whatever. He said, I'll let you know tomorrow. Is that okay? I said, sure. No problem. I mean, because at this point, there's no skin in the game for me. There's no loss if I don't get it, but it's a gain if I do, And guy was real friendly or whatever. So Thursday, now keep in mind, shooting's going on Friday. Thursday is when it was finalized, and it was that quick. I show up Friday, I turn my paperwork, we start shooting. Filmed until 10 something last night. I didn't go home until 11 almost.
Wow.
But it was an opportunity that came open, and I met things. I learned some different things about the industry, and I've interviewed actors, I've interviewed entertainers, people that are in the business. So this gives me a vantage point to be able to say, I'm not an expert. I'm new. I'm beginning it.
Yeah.
I'm doing something, and it could lead to other things. So like you doing the podcast, a year from now, you might say, hey, Adam, I've been doing this podcast for a year, and I'm putting together a book on the best practices that I've learned. Burn your boats, best practices. Boom. I did this interview with so-and-so, and this is what I learned from this interview. Format that's already been going on. People have been doing this. They've been doing this exact same format. Who are you going to talk with? Who's the first person you're going to think of? Whoever that does that. You're going to say, hey, so-and-so, I'm thinking about putting this together. Same thing with a podcast. Somebody might have an idea for a podcast right now. They know that you're doing a podcast. They're going to contact you and say, hey, Matt, I've got this idea for a podcast. I don't know where to start. Do you have any pointers? That's what it's all about. That's what being the creative and being supportive and showing people that support. That's I guess that's my whole thing. I appreciate you giving me some extra time here to talk about it. But I just think it's just something that's important, and that really go out there and do your own thing. For me, I'll share with you. I'm working on things too. Nothing is ever perfect. It's not going to be perfect. If you wait until it's perfect, it's not ever going to get done. And you know what's better than perfect, Matt? Done. Do it. Be done.
Yeah.
It's better than perfect. Done.
I did it, and I fell prey to that, and so I completely agree. Is that at some point you got to pull the trigger, because there's only a certain amount of growth that can occur before action is taken. And so develop, and I'm not saying like you don't know shit about what you're doing. Like, don't dive into it tomorrow. Take your time and learn, figure out, actually develop a certain skill set, and then dive in. But don't sit there and wait for perfection.
Yeah, right? Set a goal, take a step. And that first step could be just taking, setting a goal. Saying, you know what? Let me play around with this idea. Let me see what I can do with this interest that I have.
Yeah.
If you're not interested in it, it's not work. If you don't have a passion for it, if it's not something that you like and it becomes drudgery, it's not going to work. You can't force yourself to do something that you don't like for free. You just can't.
No, I couldn't agree more. And Adam, I really appreciate your time today, brother.
Thank you too, man.
I can't wait until the next one.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's so crazy. I feel it sounds crazy, man, but I feel like we could do like an